Part 2. The Storm of Sorrow. The days of joy continued for many seasons. Rain fell when it was needed, sunshine came to warm the earth, and life grew in harmony. The forest had never known fear. But nature, like time, is full of secrets. One evening, the air felt different. The winds that usually carried the fragrance of flowers now came with a heavy stillness. The sky, once clear and endless, darkened with heavy clouds that rolled in from the distance. The animals noticed first in small ways. Birds that usually fill the air with songs suddenly fell quiet. Monkeys stopped their games and held tightly to the branches. Deer lifted their heads from the grass, their ears twitching at sounds too faint for most to hear. Even the mighty elephants, with their strength and wisdom, stood uneasily, sensing that the heart of the forest was troubled. That night, as the moon tried to rise above the clouds, lightning split the sky. A flash of white light tore across the heavens, followed by the roar of thunder that shook the very ground. Rain began to fall, not in gentle drops, but in fierce sheets that pounded the leaves and turned the soil to mud. The rivers, once calm, roared as water rushed faster and faster down their paths. At first, the animals thought it was only a storm. They had seen storms before. Trees bent under the force of the wind, but they always stood again. The rivers swelled, but the waters always returned to their gentle song. The forest had always survived. But this storm was different. The lightning came again, brighter and louder than before. It struck a tall tree on the edge of the jungle. In an instant, the tree exploded with fire. Flames leapt upward, glowing against the dark sky, hungry and alive. The rain tried to fight it, but the fire spread faster than the drops could fall. The wind carried sparks from branch to branch, igniting the dry leaves, and soon the forest itself was burning. The animals panicked. The parrots screeched in terror, flapping their wings as they rose into the blackened sky. Monkeys scrambled higher, only to find the flames reaching up to meet them. Tigers, who had always walked with dignity, now roared in fear as they searched for safety. Deer ran desperately, their hooves splashing through the mud, trying to outrun the fire that chased them like a shadow. Even the mighty elephants, protectors of the jungle, trumpeted loudly, calling their little ones to follow as they fled through the smoke. The fire was everywhere. Trees that had stood for centuries cracked and crashed to the ground, their burning trunks sending sparks high into the air. The rivers, once so clear, boiled with falling embers. Smoke rose so thick that the stars disappeared, and the moon was hidden behind a curtain of darkness. The night that should have been peaceful became a nightmare. Some animals tried to save their homes. Birds carried water in their beaks, dropping it onto the flames, but the fire only laughed and grew stronger. Monkeys tried to beat the flames with leaves, but the fire swallowed the leaves in an instant. Elephants sprayed water from the rivers onto the trees, but even their strength could not stop the blaze. The fire was merciless. It did not care for the songs of the birds, the games of the monkeys, or the wisdom of the elephants. It wanted only to consume, to turn everything into ashes. As the fire spread, animals became separated. Mothers cried out for their young, their voices lost in the roar of the flames. Little ones stumbled in the smoke, their eyes burning, unable to see where to go. Strong animals turned back again and again, trying to help the weak, but the fire showed no mercy. The harmony that had held the forest together was broken in a single night of terror. By midnight, the paradise was unrecognizable. The green crowns of the trees were replaced by fiery towers of red and orange. The sweet fragrance of flowers was lost beneath the choking smell of smoke. The songs of the birds, the laughter of the monkeys, the trumpet of the elephants, all were drowned in the crackling roar of fire. Some animals escaped. They ran to the farthest edges of the forest, where the flames could not reach. They gathered together on the riverbanks, trembling as they watched their home burn. But many could not escape. The forest that had once protected them now became their prison. For every animal that survived, another fell to the fire. The paradise of laughter and peace was collapsing into a graveyard of ash. The wise old owl, who had always watched over the forest, sat on a high branch as the fire closed in. His feathers were singed, his wings heavy with smoke, but his eyes remained calm. He knew the forest better than anyone, and even as the flames devoured the trees, he whispered to himself, "This is not the end. Life will return, though sorrow walks here now." But for the animals below, there was no comfort. The night was endless, the fire unstoppable. When dawn finally broke, the sky was gray with smoke, and the sun appeared as a pale, lifeless disk. The fire had slowed, but only because it had nothing left to burn. The forest was gone. The animals who had survived stepped cautiously into what was once their home. They saw only blackened trees, their branches twisted like broken arms reaching for help that never came. The rivers were choked with ash, their waters dark and lifeless. The flowers were gone, the butterflies gone, the music gone. Silence fell upon the forest, a silence so heavy it felt like a stone pressing against the heart. The paradise was no more. What had once been full of life and joy was now a desert of sorrow. The animals lowered their heads, their spirits broken, for they could not imagine how such a place could ever live again. And yet, deep within the ashes, unseen by eyes filled with tears, the earth still held a secret that waited for the right moment. For though the fire had taken much, it could not take everything. Beneath the burned soil, seeds slept quietly, waiting for a chance to rise again. But the animals did not know this. To them, their world had ended. All they could feel was grief. All they could see was loss, and all they could hear was silence. The storm of sorrow had passed, but it had left behind wounds that no one believed could ever heal.